Hello, everybody. Now, I don't normally comment on what happens in the Middle East or Middle East politics because it's a minefield, and I know people have very, very strong opinions either way, even if they're not Israeli or Palestinian, even if they're not Jewish or Arab. People who don't fall into those categories still often have very, very strong opinions about what's happening in the Middle East. Obviously, what happened on the 7th of October was utterly horrific. Nobody deserves to be shot, killed, massacred in a mass murder in a party in the desert, or to have your villages and towns and kibbutzim um, taken over by marauding terrorists who are killing everybody, men, women, and children. It's a horrific attack, and that there's nothing but condemnation for that, of course. But it's very odd also that the border fence was so easily overrun, and this is something that a lot of people have been questioning. Questions have died down now in the mainstream media, but this border fence that surrounds the Gaza Strip, that's been there for many decades, is the most secure and sensitive border fence in the world. And even if a cat approaches, it will trigger a defense response. But it seems on the morning of the attack, it was just left wide open with nobody around, and it wasn't being monitored. After the Egyptians had warned Israel a couple of weeks before that there was something big being planned in Gaza, despite it also being the 50th anniversary plus 1 day of the Yom Kippur War in 1973. And also, given that a few weeks previously, Biden in America had unfrozen $6 billion of Iranian money. So all of those three things, which you think would trigger heightened security, despite that, the opposite happened, and a load of 300 men bulldozed the fence with tractors and then ran through and started killing everybody in the towns and villages nearby the border. It was unmanned, essentially. So that is, at the very least, very, very odd. And you wonder if someone in the Israeli government, in the Israeli military, could have stopped it, but let it happen because they wanted something like this to happen to justify the next thing on the agenda, whatever that is. We know in history, Pearl Harbor, it's now a matter of historical record and fact that the president, the military knew that the Japanese were going to attack Pearl Harbor months beforehand. They were building up their forces to do it, but they wanted it to happen because they wanted the Japanese to strike first, so that would justify them escalating and getting into more of a war and escalating the war and getting involved. We know the Gulf of Tonkin incident that started the Vietnam War. It didn't actually happen, but by the time the proof was there that it was actually a fake piece of news, it was a false flag. Well, it was something that hadn't happen at all. America was already at war with Vietnam, and it was too late. Then in Iraq, there was the reports came out that Saddam Hussein's forces were killing babies in incubators, which was proven to be false. But that was propaganda that ramped up people's emotions to go in and go in hard in Iraq. Obviously, that was tied to 9/11 beforehand, which is another thing that was complete nonsense. But by the time people had discovered that it was fake, well, the damage had been done. And, you know, who knows what the truth is in this situation, because truth is the first victim of war, as they say. All I can say really is that people are suffering on both sides. Yeah, 1,000 Israelis have died or been killed by Hamas terrorists. But Israel's response to cut off water and food and energy to Gaza and preparing to go in and do what they're going to do, and people, this is the most disturbing thing. People in movements that I am loosely connected with, whether it's the freedom movement or the conservative movement, not the fake Conservative Party, but people who say they're conservative commentators, stand for freedom and free trade and traditional values and these kind of things. Some people are calling for effectively genocide against 2.5 million people in Gaza. I don't want that. How can anybody want that? I just don't understand the mentality where, look, I completely understand finding the perpetrators, the members of Hamas who have done this, who may do other things, arrest them, do what you want to do to Hamas people, but leave the innocent men, women, and children out of this. Some of the comments I've seen seem like people are salivating for Gaza to be leveled. Something wrong with your head if you're thinking that, seriously. Israelis are human beings. Palestinians are human beings. There's a cycle of violence and revenge and recrimination and escalation that has been going on for 70, 75 years. I mean, that's why I don't comment on this, because, it's impossible to get to the bottom of it, who started it, who retaliated, this and that. You can go round and round in circles forever, which is why I don't normally comment on the Middle East. But really, I think what we have to try to do is, despite this being, obviously a very, very dangerous moment, and where escalation looks like it's going to happen, to call for people to realize the humanity of the other side and to try to care for the innocent people and make sure that innocent women and children mostly, but also many men who do not want to fight and just want to get on with their lives, and try to in any way facilitate or just speak for a lessening of the conflict and to de-escalate, because ultimately, two sides are going to have to figure out a way to live together, or else one side will destroy the other with millions of lives being killed in a genocide. And I don't want that to happen to either side. So all I can say is, let's try, however hard it is at the moment, to keep peace in mind as something that we want to get to in the future.